Happy Sunday to you. You guys are lucky I let you sleep in today. I didn't wake you up in the pre-dawn hour. So now that you've had a little extra sleep, I hope you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because I need to cover something really important with you. A very common question I get asked, and I just got asked this recently, was, Bryan, I'm thinking about getting a second dog. I want it to be a companion to the dog I currently have. Do you have any recommendations on how to select that perfect dog? Well, I'm telling you what, you bet I do. I have a lot of recommendations. It is a really tricky business anytime you're trying to achieve compatibility with two or more dogs. It really is. I tell you what, people come to me all the time and they ask me, they go, hey, Bryan, can you help me make these dogs get along? I always reply and I go, I'm so glad you used the word make, because that's exactly what you're going to have to do with these two particular dogs. You're going to have to make them get along. In other words, if we don't have natural compatibility, we don't have all the ingredients in place to create that stable hierarchy, then you will have fights. You will have rivals. And the only way that you can deal with rivals is if you have what's known as the asymmetry of rivals, a great difference in the two. Because the greater the difference, the less of a rival you're going to be. And the less that we step on that land that I talked about in previous videos called the Principle of Resemblance. So the less you resemble me in my abilities, my size, my weapons, my experience, my age, my gender, then the better we're probably going to get along. Because I get to adopt the attitude my way or the highway. And you're just going to say, yes, sir, 3 bags full. And we'll get along. Okay, so a lot to take into account here when you're thinking about getting a second dog. And I've done this many times in my own life. And the vast majority of them, when I followed my own rules I'm about to give you, it worked out like a champ. But there's been a few times, even when I followed the rules I'm about to give you, it did not work out. It didn't work out at all. And then there's been a few times where we just adopt the dog. We pulled the dog from a really bad situation and we really wanted to rehabilitate that dog. And none of these parts fit. Not a single one of them. And it still worked out like a champ. So again, these are kind of like the laws of average. Think about, let's just kind of think of it almost like going to Las Vegas right now. Let's try and stack the deck in our favor just to create the best chance that we can have of adopting or purchasing that second dog or even that third dog or even that fourth dog. Okay, so when we do this, first thing we must always think about, first thing is competitive aggression. Big A, line underneath. You have to think about that. You must think about competitive aggression. You must always assume that these two dogs could become rivals. They could become combatant over any resource. And over the last several weeks, I have covered resources can be anything. Anything from the thing that you least expect. You didn't even expect it. It's like some dirty old sock. Who gives a hoot about that? Well, obviously that one dog does. Who cares about the position next to me on the sofa? I'm kind of grumpy. You don't want to sit next to me anyway. I'm like a porcupine up here on this darn thing. Nah, well, it matters to some dogs. And me, dear old me, yours truly. I'm worth fighting over? Really? That's kind of cool. No, it's not. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why your two dogs could get into a fight. There's a lot of things that they value and they consider a resource. And at any given moment when that resource is up for grabs, they'll consider you, the other dog, as an opponent. So guys, we got to follow the rules here with nature. We just definitely want to stack the deck in our favor. And that's the whole thing here. Golly, give it a fighting shot here. Give it a chance here. So again, keeping in mind competitive aggression. Keeping in mind the P of R, the principle of resemblance. And also keeping in mind asymmetry. And I'm not going to write the whole thing out, of rivals. Okay, all of that. How do we take care of all of that as best we can? How do we get that thing done? Number one rule of all time, is opposite genders. I can't say that enough. When my situations have worked out, and those situations have worked out for my clients over the years, I'm telling you what, it worked out far more times, by far, when we had opposite genders. Opposite genders starts to really erode that principle of resemblance. Yeah, been over this before. You can neuter a dog, you can spay a dog, but they still know what gender they are. They still know. So that being said, if we have opposite genders, we kind of got rid of the P of R for the most part. For the most part. So that being said, opposite genders. And also know this, in nature, competition is most fierce within that same gender group. So if I drop on the board over here, let's say I got a typical wolf hierarchy here. Try and make my little marker as broad as I can. There we go. So you guys can see it. All right, so over here I got the males, and over here I got my females. Okay, that's the mating pair. That's 1 and that's 2. And sometimes it's 2 and 1. It really is. But for right now, I'm just going to use the example 1 and 2. Male 1, female 2. Now, all of a sudden, they have offspring. And they grow up. They grow up. And then, and about a year later, they have more offspring. And they kind of start growing up. Next thing you know, the first batch of offspring, the first litter, is now approaching 2 years old. So all of a sudden, this male over here is number 3 in the ranking, in the total overall ranking. And then you have a 4 total. So 2 sons over here ranked 3 and 4. And then you have a daughter over here ranked 5. And then you have a son ranked 6. And then a daughter over here ranked 7 and 8. The issue is not with 1 and 4. It's with 1 and 3. That's my issue. Not with 2 and 5. She's not going to have a problem, because they're so lower ranking. So that brings me to the next thing that you need to select for. Temperament. You're not born dominant. You're born with the ability to be dominant. You're born more driven to dominate. You're born more driven to lead. We know that. We know that among ourselves as human beings. Some dogs are just born to lead. They're born to be pushy. They're faster, or they're stronger, or they're bigger, or they're just flat out more determined. They are. It's called an evolutionary stable strategy. It's part of the rule of mind, the evolutionary rule of mind, and part of game theory and everything else. So if you cannot have opposite gender, so I'm just going to write opposite gender or sex, then at least go for a great temperament disparity. A great one. Big leader. Follower. Go for that 1 and 6. How about that? I remember when we had a large German Shepherd named Dax. Big, powerful dog. He was a 1 all day, every day. And we also have a male Morkie named Dave. I mentioned him before. When Dax would ever look over at Dave, they're about the same age, same gender. He would just go, seriously, really? You're no rival of mine. And therefore, there was never an issue. If Dax wanted something that Dave had, unless Dave could get up underneath the bed, dead smack in the center, or underneath some ottoman, or somewhere where Dax couldn't reach him, it was Dax's. He took it. And Dave willingly, not so graciously, but willingly gave it up. All right, so if you cannot have opposite gender, at least go for a great temperament disparity. Okay, go for that. That will take care of all that stuff up here. And then if you can't get that thing done, so you go, okay, Bryan, so I really got my eye on this male, and I already have a male, and he's a really cool dog, and he seems kind of sweet, but anything else? Well, yeah. Great age disparity. Great age. And about a week from now, coming up here soon, in less than 2 weeks, is my birthday, and I'm getting to be an old dog, so I'm going to do an extended series on aging dogs. What can we do to help our dogs not age so rapidly? Cognitive dysfunction, you name it, all that sort of stuff that mixes up there with age, all the vulnerabilities and all the things that we need to understand about an aging dog, what happens to them, and also what can we do to kind of stave that thing off a little bit, kind of make old man, hey, stay away from me. I'm not ready for you just to be creeping up on me just yet. But we'll be talking about that. But one of the things about getting a really young dog and having a really old dog is sometimes the young dog, notice I said the word sometimes, okay? No absolutes here. But in most of the cases that I know of, a young dog, a puppy, or just a really young dog can help extend the life of an older dog. Now, that age disparity is roughly between about 6 and 8 years. It is. And that's the age disparity I'm talking about. Man, I'd prefer a decade if you can give it to me. But about 8 years, and you typically have one animal. I'm 8. Yeah, I'm a little old, but I'm kind of good to go still here. I can definitely hold something. I can protect something. I can go after something. And I can also control you little brat. Well, then 2 years goes by. Little brat grows up. Little brat all of a sudden looks across the way one day and goes, you know all those times you've been pinning me on my back? You've been taking my favorite little rawhide? You've been hogging up all the space up on the sofa? Well, every dog has his day. I think the day's mine now. I've noticed I've gotten a little bigger. And I know you've gotten a little older. And that's right. That 8-year-old dog's suddenly 10 years old. And most 10-year-old dogs are willing to go, all right, I'm not going to go graciously here. I really don't feel like giving this thing up here. But again, I'm always weighing cost benefit, running everything through a cost benefit analysis. So what's the cost of me tangling with you in the achieved benefit? The older you get, the more the cost or the benefit just isn't worth the cost any longer. Yeah, they say you get a little wiser when you get older, and I think that's part of it as well. You realize your vulnerabilities. You realize you're not that young spring chicken anymore. What you got away with back then, you're not going to get away with now. So again, it's no different with dogs, especially group living dogs, whether they be wolves or whether they be dogs in our household. So give me a great age disparity if you can. If you got the same gender, oh my God, they're about the same temperament, but they're about separated by 8 to 10 years. You're probably going to get away with it. Okay, and then lastly, if you can't get any of those things done, I'm telling you what, you're probably going to lose in the house here, just so you know. So only take what money you can afford to lose, because the last thing is a great size disparity. Now, that does not always work. Little dogs who are little and have always been little, and their whole breed is little, kind of like Jack Russells and Rat Terriers and Yorkies or miniature Schnauzers. They kind of have the attitude, I may be small, but I'm mean, and mean counts. And you bet. I've seen Jack Russells make Rottweilers line up and say, yes, sir, 10 hook. You bet. I have seen it. So again, maybe that doesn't count. Maybe kind of get a dog that's not such a pushy little dog. If you can get a great size disparity, typical, your big old, I don't know, your Mastiffs, your Danes, whatever, or even big German Shepherds, big Labs, and a smaller dog. The only thing you'll want to watch out for, that is simply the law of gross tonnage. Keep an eye on that. They start playing, and next thing you know, big dog lays on little dog. It's kind of like an NFL linebacker playing with a Pee Wee League linebacker. Those are just natural things that come with dog ownership when you own multiple dogs. You got to be smart about a few things, and you can't let things get out of hand. Okay, so that's when I've obeyed all of those, I have mitigated my principle of resemblance situations. I have worked out my competitive aggression as best I can. You can get caught by surprise every now and then, but I'm telling you what, again, it's called stacking the deck in your favor. You go to Vegas and you win every darn hand, they're going to kick you out. So we're not talking about winning every hand. We're talking about winning the majority of the hands. And it will also mitigate the asymmetry of rivals, or actually enhance the asymmetry of rivals, because that's what we want. We don't want symmetry. We want asymmetry. We want a disparity. Opposite genders, different sizes, different ages, different temperaments. I'm kind of like it down here in the mailroom. Not a lot of stress down here. I get to punch the time card and get to punch it out, and I'm done. You work all the time. You work 365. You never get a break. Yeah, in fact, there'll be a video coming up about how the more subordinate animals actually have less of a stress. They carry around with them lesser levels of saturated cortisol in their bloodstream compared to leaders. There's a price to being a leader, absolutely, but that's for another video. Okay, guys, so there you go. That was a viewer question this week. I wanted to make sure I got it out there because that's a very common question. I get asked that all the time, and I go through it. In fact, we are in my own personal household right here. We're contemplating about bringing on another dog in our household. Okay, so don't think for a second that Kira and I have not sat down and gone over this. All right? We will obey that criteria before we bring another animal in our house. And the reason why we're going to give it that due diligence, and the reason why I need you to give it that due diligence, is because that animal has no say in this thing. It's going to get plucked out of nowhere and parked right here. And when that happens, that thing would certainly appreciate if I gave it that sort of due diligence. I gave it a shot at living in my household successfully. And that's what we have to do. We have to do that before the emotions set in, before you get the big eyes that dogs have, where they've grown 2 additional muscles so they can be wider than what wolves have, so they can influence our behavior. Just see, you can fall for those pretty easy. And when you do, they want your brain, you just turned it off. And all of a sudden, about 2 weeks into it, about the time that thing gets its solid footing being in your household, you got World War III. And you're going, what did I do? So guys, take it from me. I've won more than I've lost. And I'm hoping and I'm praying I'm going to win this next one. I'm going to practice what I preach. Okay? So I am. If we follow through with this, I'll keep you posted along the way. I'll let you know if it's working or not. Good news or bad news. You might as well learn from my mistakes, and that's what I've been trying to do in all these videos, helping you learn from my mistakes so you don't make them, so our dogs remain in our households and they don't go back off to rescues and to animal shelters who eventually can't find a home for them and eventually put them down. No way, man. Hey, just so you know, dog, I got your back. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you want to live here, that your stress response is not mobilized every time you hear one of the other dogs bark, every time you see one of the other dogs give you that crescent moon out the side of their eye. I want to make sure that your quality of life is what it should be. And there's no one more responsible for that than me. And you. So guys, don't fall for the emotions. Do the due diligence. Do it. And if anything, if it goes south, well, at least we did it right. It just didn't work out this particular time. Then we'll have to figure out plan B. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. If you have any questions, send them to me. I'll be glad to try and do a Facebook Live on them. And if you found this information beneficial, and I know there's someone out there that could benefit from, because everyone's getting dogs. I've been seeing more and more puppies lately. Maybe they're just out and about a little bit more than what they used to be, but we're not going to quit owning dogs no matter what's going on with us around us. So a lot of people are going to be getting dogs. Please make sure that they try and obey these rules. Stack that deck in their favor and stack the deck in the dog's favor. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day.